Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Harmonious World. My name is Hilary Seabrook. And for this episode, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Todd Mosby, who I actually interviewed 5 years ago, April 2021. So Todd's got a new album out. It's called American Heartland. And what you're listening to now is Clouds Above Golden Fields. This is gorgeous. And I'm really looking forward to talking to Todd about this new album. So welcome to Harmonious World. Todd Mosby, this is the second time we've had a conversation, and I'm absolutely delighted to be talking about American Heartland, which came out a few weeks ago. And it's a very, very interesting sound you've got and the people you've got on it and everything. So there's lots to talk about.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Hilary. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate your support.
No problem. So first of all, let's start by, we had a little chat before and I said that it was very difficult to put you in a box in terms of your music. So it's contemporary, but that doesn't make it pop. It's got all sorts of jazz and I mean it's pop in the broadest sense of the word, and it's popular music. Yeah, where does that come from?
I think it's probably because I don't have any kind of a record company kind of saying you have to do this in this way. Yeah, let me put it this way. I've kind of got my own free reign in what I do. You know, I'm totally self-supported, self-funding. So with that comes, you know, a lot of freedom, but, you know, it's a little bit harder financially, but still, I can kind of stick to my own way of doing things, my own way of hearing things without having to answer to anybody else. I don't really write for an audience. What happens is if it sounds good to me and I'm enjoying writing it, then hopefully that will transfer over into others. And my background is pretty broad at this point in my life.
Yeah, and it's guitar based, isn't it?
Yep.
But you've got
Yep.
so much else going on.
I've got, part of my early training was, Berklee College of Music, and I wound up studying arranging there. And then later on, around 2013, I wound up doing some more studying and getting a master's in composition. So I was able, I can handle the instrumentation and the instruments. I can handle just about any style and way of recording as well. This particular album required me to chart out all the instruments, all the arrangements, write the music, then do the arrangements on it so I could hand the parts out to the studio musicians, which is actually a world-class set of musicians I have on here.
Oh, it certainly is. I mean, you've got some really, they've all worked with everybody who's anybody, haven't they?
They have. That's part of Jeffrey Weber, who's the producer. One of the producer roles is actually for me, is a big thing is song selection, because by the time you get done recording an album, it's going to have to go through numerous listens. I mean, thousands.
Yeah.
And you better not be bored with it. So usually, if it excites me and excites the producer, the tune, and then when I hit the arrangement, if it still carries through there, then hopefully that'll carry through to the musicians. The musicians on this were Vinnie Colaiuti, Tom Scott, Leland Sklar, Michael Manring, Dapo Tormino on piano, Luis Conte on percussion. First time I worked with him, amazing person and percussionist. These are all Lola Christine on vocals, Laura Vall on vocals. I had a 3-horn section going on with Nick Lane. He's actually, I think he's with Chicago right now, touring. One of the trombone players got sick, so he's out with them. Who else? Dan Ferrante, amazing trumpet player. And then I had a French horn on there, John Dixon, and Tom Scott was on sax.
Yeah,
and
I know.
He actually did one of the arrangements, which was I'm very, very happy and pleased with.
Wow. I mean, Tom Scott's a big name, isn't he? So,
Tom Scott's a very big name. He's been around. I mean, I think he's done more movie scores than he has album credits. To tell you the truth,
yeah.
he even did Roger Rabbit. If you, I don't know if you remember that movie, but
Yeah, of course.
I mean that. I mean, he wrote the theme to Starsky and
Yeah.
Hutch. I mean, he did all of Steely Dan's Asia horn parts. He did Joni Mitchell's
Yeah.
Court and Spark album, the horns and the flutes on there. I think anyway, so he's very huge, and I felt personally, if because he was on my last project as well, the same crew was as well, bass, drum. Well, I had a different bass player, but pretty much the same crew, and again produced by Jeff Weber. He's got a list of credits. So, but Tom, I asked him to. I told Jeff, I said, look, as long as we've got Tom on this project, we might as well. I said, wouldn't it be awesome if he could like write an arrangement and just to have that in my catalog, a Tom Scott
Oh,
arrangement.
absolutely.
And Tom said, yeah. So, and he actually had fun with it. Um, we got the arrangement about, actually as soon as it hit the studio, maybe a day before. But so we were all able to work up the parts in the studio, and it was a lot of fun. And he's so great. He did the arrangement on Land of Green, and he has actually paid tribute. Can I give you a backstory on that?
Please, yeah.
And then I'll stop and let you talk some more. He did he started writing the horn parts, and I go, Tom, that sounds like Oliver Nelson, on the background lines on Land of Green. And he goes, yeah, Oliver Nelson was my favorite, one of my heroes. I knew him, blah blah blah. Well, Oliver was from St. Louis, and I used to play with his niece, who's a bass player in town. She probably still plays. I haven't seen her in a long time. But anyway, so I just thought that whole thing was just such a beautiful, tribute to Land of Green, which is what I call Missouri in the summertime. It is so green here. I hope if you have allergies, it's probably not the place to be, but it is like one of the most greenest places I've ever seen, and full variety of greens too.
At this point, I'm going to play a clip from that because it's a lovely track. So when did you write these pieces? I mean, how long do they go back?
I usually it usually takes me about 3 years to complete a project. I got done with the last album's project in about 23. So it was about 25. I reached out to Jeff again. 24, I reached out to him about another project. And usually I acquire about anywhere from 100 to 500 snippets of ideas that I, just put on my little tape cassette, my little digital tape recorder, just a handheld. And I'll just write sketch ideas. Sometimes they're full idea, finished ideas, but long story short, I would say it takes me about, once I get together with Jeff, I'll present him with about 30 ideas that I want to work on, and then we hone it down to maybe 12 or so. and then from there, I start writing. Sometimes it requires writing new music. At that time, well, we need something to fill out this kind of set on the album. But by that time, I had the album concept together, and I definitely work in concepts. I like when I do an album, I like having a central theme going through, because then I can tie the titles and everything else in. So it probably takes, the writing process is actually very quick, the song. So sometimes I can finish it in a thought. Sometimes it requires a little bit more time, to sketch out and hammer out like melodic ideas that make sense to me. But so I would say, pretty quickly. Then the arrangements come. I think I did the arrangements in about 2 months. And then I wrote the parts, which is another part of the arrangement process. And you correct things and, hammer things out more then. And, and it's that's a process. But I would say all in all, maybe about a year from getting together with Jeff, getting the songs together, writing them, arranging them, and then the next year we present in the studio. So for this particular one, I got together with him in May of 25. We did the studio date in August. So actually that process went a little bit quicker. And then we have another year of promotions after
Yeah.
that.
It's really interesting because it does feel like a collection of tunes that belong together. Sometimes I talk to artists about albums where they kind of go, oh yeah, I wrote one 10 years ago and one came like, which is fine because it shows it's a different process. But this very much feels like a collection that sits together really nicely.
Yes, and I also did two cover tunes, if you want to call it that, but my arrangements of them, which was Wichita Lineman and Both Sides Now, Wichita Lineman by Jimmy Webb, Both Sides Now by Joni Mitchell. And to me, growing up in Missouri, these were very characteristic of an era and a time that I grew up. Half my life was kind of spent on a farm because my dad had a working farm, out in the rural areas, horses, cattle, you name it, chickens. And but then I went to school in St. Louis. So.
Right, right. So what about performing this album? Are you taking it out on the road?
Um, I would love to. Right now, I do love performing, and I'm actually going to be doing a performance May 29th of this album. We're starting to rehearse it now, and I've been writing charts in the zone, that it would fit for a quartet. Because, you write for studio band, this is for
Of course.
live performance, a little bit different animal.
Yeah.
So, and a little bit different, bass instrumentation. Rhythm section's still there, but I can't travel with the horn section, although I'd love to.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. But I quite like that anyway because there's something a little disappointing, I think, if you go to a gig and it's exactly the same as the album and it's a bit like, well, I could have stayed at home and listened to the album. If there's nothing different, there's nothing new. So I quite like when it's a completely different orchestration. And usually, I mean, it's a financial consideration, obviously, and logistical because it's about traveling around with 12 people or something is very difficult. But I still think it allows the songs to develop in a different way.
Hilary, that's absolutely correct. And that's how, when I write, that's, I write for recordings and then I write for live performance because it is so different. What that means is a recorded piece of music. This is just my concept, and I think a few others as well. Once it's embedded in a medium, it stays there. It never changes. It just keeps going back and forth, over and over again. So the information has to be something that a listener can actually listen to over numerous times and still get some depth out of it. Again, that's where a really good producer will come in handy.
Right.
Also, a producer will give you, you have access to a stable of musicians. But when you start writing, then when you start performing live, okay, so now all of a sudden it doesn't have to be like 3.5 minutes, or
No.
you can actually crack open the song and really like show an audience. hey man, this is like really cool. Like check out this rhythm, on this piece right here. And then, because that's where you really show the audience what you really want to show them in a tune, and get down to the hardcore nuts and bolts of what the music really is. And that's something you'll never get from, a recording. And you should, it's a whole, like I said, it's a whole different animal. But then also a live performance has a certain arc to it, so you can really engage an audience. Um, it can't be that, if you go to, it's not like the same tempo all the way through. You have moments, and when I put together a live show, actually, I work a lot of like special moments in. So I take a listener and an audience through a whole arc. I got training with Tom Jackson out of Nashville, and I used to run a lot of my live performances through him, and I still do, every now and then, especially like my solo stuff, I'll run through him, and we'll put together a beautiful set. The guy's a master. He's a live music producer, and he's a master at putting concerts on together for you, breaking open tunes, even showing, audience participation stuff. It's really a lot of fun. So.
Yeah, I think there are I as I say, I review a lot of albums, I review a lot of gigs, I play a lot of stuff, and there's nothing worse when than going to a gig and everything's up at this level. Everything's up here and it stays up here all the time. And even when they do
Hmm.
a ballad, they're still up here. It's like
Yeah.
take it down and then bring it back up again.
Absolutely. Well, and especially for a new audience, there's kind of like a system, essentially first two tunes are intro tunes, and it's like you go into a restaurant or something, you don't want the same thing. First you have the first meal, it's like a
Yeah.
appetizer, then maybe a salad, drinks, it kind so yeah, there's different moods, and again, it's a musical arc. So there's a very high level moment that hits maybe around song 6 or so, um, and then you just drop it down to a really nice pin drop moment where you bring the audience in. And usually I'll do like a solo guitar piece or break down the instrumentation for just guitar and piano or something like that. Uh, and then you build it back up, for the closer of that set, or if it's like a 90-minute set or a 45-minute
Yeah.
set. Usually I do a 90-minute concert, so it's built around that, and each song, engages at a different level, different tempo. Like the first two would be like kind of, mid-drive, mid-level tunes. You're introducing yourself. Third tune would be like a radio hit tune. Fourth and fifth tune would be like, you can stretch those out a little bit. You can really like crack open, let the drummer go wild, or have a really like meditative section. Sixth tune really up, kind of audience participation thing. Seventh, eighth tune, you drop it for the pin drop. 9 is like the closer. 10 would be like an encore, and the closer generally starts very low, slow, and then builds out to really big end, and then you have an encore. And then
Yeah.
you try to sell merch,
Yeah. No,
something like
absolutely.
that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll have by that time, they'll have a very nice. You'll have taken them through a very nice arc. So it's not the same all the time.
No, absolutely. Well, when we spoke originally, it was the beginning of 2021 when
Hmm.
we thought we were coming out of the pandemic and then we went back in and all sorts of things. But
Hmm.
uh, I can remember us having a conversation about, coming to the UK. And obviously, I mean, that was a million miles away. But how is that looking now? Do you think you're going to bring your band or even a quartet or something over to the UK?
That requires having an infrastructure in place, which at this moment in time is just not there.
No.
I was working performing arts centers. My agent retired, but honestly, I'm focusing now on recording. I've got, I've got like two recording projects in the irons right now for this year, and then possibly a third one. Then the next major recording I have will be in about 2 years with Jeff again out in Los Angeles. But I'm working with a hammer dulcimer player out of Tucson, and then a classical North Indian singer, actually out of St.
Oh,
Louis.
wow.
And I'm working with them, producing an album or creating works for albums for them. So I'll be collaborating with them, and then I'll have my own project up next year. But I love touring. I mean, I love performing. That's like, even if it's just, to me, the ultimate performance is solo guitar.
Yeah.
And the reason that is, it's just me and my instrument. You know, you want to find out what a musician can do, sit down, you know, don't play a record for me. Sit down and play for me. And Imran Khan told me that once. He was my Guruji. And he said, Todd, you know, people come and leave me all their records and stuff and to listen to. I said, I don't want to listen to those. I just want to hear them play.
Yeah.
Sit down and play for me. Then tell me, you know, then I'll, you know, like that.
Yeah.
And honestly, there's a lot there because, you know, now you're communicating one-on-one with an audience. And I love performing solo acoustic.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, and solo Indian on my Imran guitar.
Right.
I would love to.
Yeah.
You know, hook me up, man.
Oh, absolutely.
I've got a band in St. Louis. I could take them. We're rehearsing right now. I'm getting a nice set together of this album and then some new ones I wrote. It's a lot of fun.
Right. Well, I'll make sure that people get to listen to this, and you know, I'll point them to your music, and then we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Who knows?
Yeah. That sounds.
Yeah.
There's a lot of help out there, AI help, and a lot of help now that I just came across recently. So maybe, you know, I'll find some locations because I'm just now, I'm so busy with this other stuff. But you know, that's definitely like on the immediate back burner to get into.
Yeah, there are some great venues in the UK. Honestly, there are some brilliant venues. So you know,
really, like around you, around
sort of in the sort of Cambridge, between London and Cambridge, and then across both sides of the motorways that run north south, and you know,
I see
there's loads, so you can do quite a lot, you know. So even if it was just you with a guitar, that would be amazing.
Okay, well, I'll look into it. My wife grew up in England for at least about 5 years of her life. Right. You know, very impressionable. She loves London and in that area, and maybe I could lasso her into booking me some gigs there.
Yeah. Well, the thing to do is to look at I review gigs. So on my website, you can see the venues that I've been to. So all she needs to do is look at those venues and check them out.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds great. Yeah. Well, thank you. Okay. I'll definitely follow that.
Brilliant. Well, hopefully we'll meet in person at some point, one side of the pond or the other.
That'd be awesome.
So thank you for joining me for that episode of Harmonious World. It was such a joy to speak to Todd again. And what you're listening to now is All the Stars Tonight. It's really interesting hearing him talk about the process that he goes through in terms of having ideas and then developing them once he's got rid of the ones that aren't going to work. So I hope you enjoyed listening to my conversation with Todd Mosby, and I really hope you have a very, very good week. Thanks for joining me once more on Harmonious World. Thank you for listening to the latest episode of Harmonious World. My name is Hilary Seabrook, and it's a great delight to bring this series of discussions with musicians and composers and writers and all sorts of people to you. Obviously, there's no point in having a podcast if people aren't listening, and I'm very grateful to my listeners for doing so. Thanks also to Joe English for composing and performing this new theme tune. So wherever you get your podcast, you can leave a review. You can share this with your friends and family, either as a link or on social media and that sort of thing. I'd be really grateful for that. Don't forget that you can subscribe now. There's a link wherever you get your podcasts. So have a great week, and please remember why I started this, which is just to try and make the world a little more harmonious. Thanks for listening to Harmonious World.